Chapter 11. Jeremiah walked me home and told me he thought he knew what the Shadow Man was. He said he could see inside my soul and that I had been cursed with a demon, and the demon was trying to possess me. It was a demon of oppression and depression that followed me since I was a child. He said I must fight it. He offered to pray for me. He wanted to come inside the apartment, but I didn't let him. I told him I didn't believe in all of that, but I appreciated his offer of help. I think I will make an appointment with my doctor tomorrow about the medicine. I'm sure my mom and dad will help me pay for the bill. I can't go on like this. The only time I feel safe is in my dreams when the light comes. But the light isn't always there now, and my dreams aren't always nice anymore. I feel like I'm on the verge of a nervous breakdown. I have never had problems telling what was real from what was a dream, but I feel like I'm walking in between the two all the time now. Like the two are the same thing, but different, and I'm being pulled apart at the seams. I need to stop talking to Jeremiah. I don't want to go back to those meetings again. Why? Are you afraid? What are you afraid of? Nice people who want to do good? People who have pulled themselves out of trouble? People who love God? People you intellectually feel superior to? How are you superior, Amanda, when you wallow in your made-up problems? Yeah, made-up problems. No one has ever abused you. You've never dealt with addiction. The hardest part of your life is making yourself get out of bed in the morning. You're a piece of filth, a pathetic, sad little turd. All these people want to do is help you, and if Jeremiah is right, if the end times are coming, if your shadow man is real and not just another imaginary problem you make up inside of your silly mind, you will be sorry, very sorry. Wake up, Amanda. You have potential if you would just discipline yourself. If you would just give yourself over to what you could be, the possibilities are amazing. You could fight on the side of good and right of God. Maybe your dreams are meant to inspire people. Maybe if you got up and stopped feeling sorry for yourself, you could amount to something. But instead, you just sit there and cry. Pathetic, lonely, stupid, wasteful bitch. Wasting your life and your mind in this school, accomplishing nothing. Nothing. You dabble in your writing, but you never finish anything. It all just sits in a pile of notebooks in a corner of your filthy room. Notebooks filled with filthy thoughts, ungodly things, evil things. That's where your shadow man comes from, Amanda. From the filth in your mind, the thoughts you entertain for your stories you think need to be told. Why haven't you ever finished any of them, Amanda? Why, Amanda? Because they're all full of shit. Shameful thoughts and deeds and stories of people who live filthy lives. Why do you focus so much of your energy and time on the darkness when it could be filled with light, Amanda? Why? I put down the open journal on the coffee table. The voice had changed dramatically, as if it were no longer her writing, but someone else. The tulpa? The thought form I had seen was not advanced enough to be this independent. Jazeel? If so, why? Why tear her apart like this? I rubbed my eyes with the heel of my hands. Kitty was meowing at me and then flopped down on the page I had just finished reading. I looked at the clock. I had been reading all night. It was time to feed the cats again. I walked out into the courtyard on the side of the church with the food, and the cats started coming. They always knew when it was time to eat. It had stopped snowing completely now, but the sky was still that uncomfortable shade of gray that renders everything monochromatic in the evening. I thought about the flowers JJ had sent to me. Did either one of those J's know the pain that Amanda had been in? The internal conflict? Amanda had the ability to see things and to dream things. I wondered what had happened to her half-completed stories. It concerned me that she had not been able to come to me to tell me what had been happening to her. I was probably the one person who could have helped her, but I was also the last place that she would have thought to look. After all, I was the crazy cat guy. I was surrounded by them now. Kitty was sitting in the window watching me feed her feral cousins. I could hear a couple of shots of gunfire off in the distance, and then sirens. Human beings were a fucked up mess. The whole lot of them. And I was just as fucked up as they were. I didn't give a shit about making the world a better place. I just missed Amanda. I still didn't understand what was happening to her. I had nothing concrete yet to pin on Jaziel. His methods were unconventional, but were still considered within the confines of the law. Angels and demons are the same when you get right down to it. They are the same species of creature. When the whole creation was set in order, way before the sun had even become a star, a long time before humans, me, the planet. At that moment, when everything was all contained in a space so infinitely small that it didn't exist, that was when the angels first came into existence. And some of the angels rebelled, led by Lucifer. They didn't want to serve, they wanted to be served. The moment they made that choice, they became demons. It wasn't a good choice, and it got them nowhere. They still had to serve. They just traded bosses. These fallen angels maintained their rank and their abilities even though they changed their company affiliation. If an angel can heal, then a demon can heal. A demon can appear in a dream. So can an angel. The mechanics are all the same. And that means that if a demon could possess a human being, so could an angel. They are two sides of the same proverbial coin. If I wanted to really understand possession, I needed a better source than the legalese of the Treaty of Year One. That just regulated interactions with humans. It wasn't a how-to guide. I needed an expert in possession, someone who had done it successfully many, many times over the millennia. Fuck. This was going to be awkward. I was going to have to do another surprise inspection. I needed the help of someone I truly despised. I have never liked demons. I tolerate most of them, though. Really, they just have a job to do. It's a shit job working for a shit company with the shittiest boss in the entire universe. The only benefits they really have is the dental and medical insurance. Other than that, it's hell. Literally hell. Hell isn't really a fiery pit where all the demons live. It's a state of being that demons inhabit. The place I send the ones that truly overstep their bounds, that's a place that's much, much worse than hell. I wish I could have sent this one there. I couldn't tolerate this guy. He turned my stomach. The spiritual equivalent of a Nazi war criminal. And he had been assigned to my jurisdiction for supervision. He hadn't done quite enough to be sent to the really, really bad place, but he had done enough that I wished he had. He wasn't suave and annoying like Leo, or selfish and asinine like Ira, or even domineering like Nina, although technically he fell under her supervision. He definitely wasn't ruled by sloth or gluttony either. He was just evil. The kind of evil that didn't just enjoy causing some pain here or there. Not the gentle, modern, civilized version of the vices that I knew. This guy is the kind of evil that lurks in the dark woods with horrible teeth, the monster in the closet that steals children and eats them. He was a soul eater, the worst one in my district. His name was Mr. Lewis. He had arrived here in 1950 after the incident in St. Louis. The name similarity wasn't purely coincidental. I had been called in to referee a pretty bad demonic possession case, along with my counterpart from the Illinois River. Both sides had their biggest representatives there to argue over the soul of the host human involved, an adolescent boy. Satan himself was present at the hearing. Mr. Lewis, the possessing entity in charge of the infestation, presented his argument that the boy had voluntarily handed over his soul at the tender age of 12, which is considered the age of consent in these matters. He argued that this had been accomplished through the shedding of the boy's blood during a violent bout of possession. Gabe had argued that there was no blood covenant that had been on record to back this statement. The other judge and I conferred and decided that the agreement was not valid unless it had been documented. We informed both sides that they could proceed with plans to gain authority over the boy's soul under our supervision. It was like being a referee at an out-of-control soccer match. By the end of the fight, the boy had consented to 2 forms of sacrament given by the human priests who had been working with the boy at the request of his family, both baptism and communion. The boy had indeed participated in a blood ritual for the side of God in the rite of communion, rendering his soul out of bounds for Mr. Lewis and his group of lesser demons, but the battle still waged on, with even Satan himself becoming involved in the fight. Mike himself stepped in to throw them out of the boy's body, even at one point speaking through the boy's mouth. "Satan, Satan, I am Saint Michael, and I command you, Satan, and the other evil spirits to leave this body now." Thinking back, it becomes obvious that angels can indeed possess a human being. Mike himself had done it, and that was a huge sacrifice for him, because from what I read, when a possessing entity severs that connection with the human body, it feels all the pain that a human feels when they leave their body at the end of their life. It's a trade I wouldn't want to make. It's one of the reasons a demon will try anything to hold on to a body once they have it. Mr. Lewis had been assigned to my district after that, probably as a way to torment me. I had insisted he open up shop somewhere not in a major metropolitan area, and after some arguing and string pulling, I had gotten my way. Not many things, human, inhuman, otherworldly, scare me, but Mr. Lewis did. He scared the shit out of me. I checked my records, and he hadn't had an inspection since 1980. I really had been slacking. It was time for a road trip. The roads had been cleared for a day, and the forecast didn't call for any more snow. My car was parked in the church's crumbling parking lot. I hadn't driven it in months, so I was surprised when it started. In a way, I hadn't wanted it to. But I needed to do this for Amanda. Unfortunately, this guy was the best source of information on the mechanics of possession I had at my disposal. I envied Gabe and Mike's magic doors, but I was an entity made from the dust of the earth, and I exist in this plane first, with only a toehold into the spiritual. I had to be able to move my physical body from one place to another, so no magic door for me. And no more flying. I was still recovering from those weeks I had spent in the air. I headed south on the highway in my old beat-up Chevy Corsica, out of the city and away from the suburbs into farmland. The corn stubble barely stuck out of the last layer of snow. As I moved further south, the snow started to give way to mud. 100 miles from the city, and it was all gone. I took an exit into a small town where there was little more than a truck stop and a Walmart. I kept driving, further and further, until I came to Mr. Lewis's permanent digs, the remains of a crumbling pre-Civil War era mansion, complete with a yard full of junk cars and rusting farm equipment. In the back was what remained of an old barn and a brick silo, inside of which a tree had grown up, its branches peeking through the top of the silo, replacing its crumbling roof. My tires made crunching noises in what used to be the driveway. There was no sign anyone was at home, which was as it should be, considering that Mr. Lewis was supposed to be haunting the place. That had been a kick in the balls for him. To go from representing Satan himself in a battle for a child's soul, which is a very prestigious position for a demon, to haunting an abandoned home in the middle of nowhere where no one ever came. I walked up to the front door, careful not to step through the rotting boards or onto any of several piles of what looked to be dog shit littering the veranda, and knocked. No answer, but I could hear the barking of several large dogs from behind the house. "Mr. Lewis," I called out in my very best cop voice, "you are due for your 10-year inspection. Please show yourself." I heard the squeak of a screen door spring, and then the thump of wood on metal. It came from the side of the house. I peeked my head around the corner and saw a man walking towards me from a double-wide trailer set on blocks at the back of the house. There was a Confederate flag and an American flag hanging in the trailer window, apparently in place of curtains, and a brand new truck parked next to it. He was wearing torn jeans and a stained t-shirt that barely covered his bulging stomach. He walked with a rolling motion, swaying from side to side as he picked his way through the yard towards me. "Hello, Mr. Lewis?" I asked, pulling out my badge for display. "I'm here for your inspection." "About 30 years late, I'd say," said the man. His voice was deep and full of gravel, like he'd been smoking cigarettes for a couple 100 years, which I'm sure was the case. "Yeah, Mr. Lewis. You haven't changed that much, Crow, have I?" "No, you could say that," I said. He had. The last time I had seen him, he was coming through Union Station, headed to his new assignment in exile. He was in a suit and tie, a perfect gentleman, a snake in a suit, slick, smart, and disgraced. He still had that little southern lilt that made him seem all the more harmless. But now it made him blend into his surroundings. A perfect redneck hillbilly. He laughed, and it sounded like someone trying to start an old car engine. "At least you're honest, Crow. You're an asshole, but you're honest. Now what are you here for anyway? I know you didn't come here for no inspection." He paused to spit a wad of chewing tobacco on the ground next to my feet. "You need something, don't you? Come on. I can see it there in your eye. You want to ask me a favor." He smiled at me, and I could see his missing teeth. He probably didn't qualify for the good dental plan anymore since he was on duty in the sticks. His breath stank of beer, cheap tobacco, and putrefying flesh. "Yeah, I just have some questions for you. Procedural stuff, mostly," I answered, "specific to your area of expertise." Oh, you mean scaring the shit out of little teenage turds looking to be scared? 'Cause that's about all I seems to be good at anymore, Crow. He spat again. You gotta do something for me too, then. That's how this works, you know. He started walking towards the trailer. Come on back. Your offer better be a good one.